So in today's class, we are going to see about the SQL, that is structured query language. Okay, you can pronounce it as SQL or SQL. Okay, so the main thing for SQL. Okay, before going to the SQL, let me ask you a question. What is the data? What is the data?
Data.
Yeah. You can search in it and you can tell me. Doesn't matter.
Collection of some numbers or
Collection of facts or information. That is data.
quantities
Okay.
or characters.
So what is the database?
Which stores the data.
Okay, database is like a storage repository for data. And we are having a concept called the database management system. Okay, which will be helpful to managing our database, like storing, retrieving, and who to access the database. Okay, for authentication, for security, we are having the database management system. Okay, and other than that, we are having another one called the RDMS, Relational Database Management System, where our data will be stored in the form of tables, which is the rows and columns. Okay, so our SQL is the query language which will be helpful to store, retrieve, and access the data from the RDMS or DBMS data. Okay, so it is like a programming language to access our data from the database. Okay, so if you're going to work with SQL, many softwares are available. One is MySQL. Yesterday I told you to download that, right? So that's one, and PostgreSQL, Oracle, SQL Server. So all of this will be having, most probably having the same kind of query with some little bit of changes. Okay. So mostly MySQL and PostgreSQL will be having the same kind of queries. Whereas when you are using Oracle and SQL Server, the queries may be little bit changed. That depends. Okay. So in this class, we are going to work with the MySQL. So for that, what you have to do is, have you downloaded that software? So
SQL. Ma'am, it is showing. So which one to download that?
Okay, fine. So you just send me the screenshot if you have any doubts.
Yeah, the same page, ma'am.
Yeah. So
one is cluster and another one is
you have to go to this one, MySQL Community GPL downloads. Go to this one. Okay. Here, what you have to do is MySQL installer for Windows.
Okay.
Okay, go there and download this one, 435.7 MB. Okay. So download this one. I have already downloaded that, so I'm not going to show you how to do that. You just download it.
Okay.
So in the middle of the installing this, it will be asking you to execute some software. Okay, when you are clicking the finish, it will move on to the next one. Okay, so when you are doing that, you will be able to understand that. So download it. If you are facing any difficulties, you can just contact me. Okay.
Okay.
So what your SQL will do is, it will be helpful to creating a database. Okay, you'll be able to create a database. Inside the database, you can be creating the tables and you can insert some records into the table. And if there is any changes you needed to make into your data, you can update the records. Okay, and you can delete. You can even delete the table also, and you can create views and procedures. You will be able to understand this during the Tuesday and Thursday classes. You will be able to understand what is a view, what is a stored procedure. Okay. And another thing is that you can set some permission or constraint for your table. Like what kind of data should be entered in the table. Likewise, you can set some constraints for your table. Okay. Then here I have mentioned the definition for RDBMS. So if you're having the table, okay, if you're having the table, what are the things will be there? There will be rows and columns.
Rows and columns.
Okay. The whole thing is called the table, and this one is column. Column 1, column 2, and column 3. In your database, these columns are called the field. Okay. So in most of the places, you will be seeing the field. Okay. The field means it's a column. Okay. And your rows are called the records. Okay. When you're going to study about the database and thing and all, you will be seeing field and records. There will be another thing. Tuples are also used in the database system. So don't confuse that. You may not see columns and rows, but instead of that, you will be seeing other names like field, records, tuples, likewise. Okay.
Okay.
So that thing is there. So each table has the name. In your database, you will not have the only one table. There will be the multiple tables. Those tables are related one. Okay. For example, if you are going to create a database for the school, you will be having the tables like for student, for staff, for subjects. Okay. And for schools, address, likewise, we'll be having the multiple tables. These tables are related tables. Okay. In a school database, you cannot have the table for employee of the other company. Okay. So these tables are related. You can have any kind of multiple tables in a single database. Okay. So now let's see how our SQL statements work. Our SQL is having somewhat 4 types of language: data definition language, data manipulation language, data query language, and data control language. I haven't mentioned it here, so just try to remember it. It is data definition language, data manipulation language, data control language, and data query language. Okay. So your data definition language is about creating a database or creating a table or creating, it is everything about creating a database table or views. Okay. And then you're going to do, you're going to delete the database, or you're going to delete some tables. Okay. Those things and all comes under the data definition language. It's all about the structure and schema of your database and table. Okay, that is data definition language. And your data manipulation language, you have inserted some records into your table, right? So you're going to do something like modification or deleting or altering. Okay. So for that, we'll be using the data manipulation language. Okay, data control language we'll be seeing in the next classes. Okay, and then data query language. Your data query language is used to fetch the data from your table, from your database. We are going to fetch some data from your database, like name of the student or age of the student. Likewise, we are going to retrieve some data. That is data query language. Okay, are you able to understand all this? Any doubts, Spandana?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So next we are having the database creation and all. So I'll show you how to do that in the MySQL thing. Okay. In MySQL, I will show you how to do that. So whenever you have downloaded your MySQL, in the search bar, search for MySQL Workbench.
Okay.
Okay. There, when you are first entering there, you will be asking for some username and password and all. Enter that. After entering that, you will be having the local instance like this. Or else if you want a new one, you can just create a new one there. Okay. You can create a connection name and everything you can do here. Okay. So I'm clicking on this one. So it will open an editor for your SQL. Okay. So let me close this one. I have already worked on this. Go to file. Okay. Go to file, then click on new query tab. Okay. It will open the query tab here. So when you are opening it, it will be like this. Okay. When you are opening this, It will be like this. So you can check on these things when you are working on there. You can import some database, you can export some database from other places. Okay, you can do all kinds of things here. So I'm just closing that. So are you able to see this tab? If you click on this,
Yeah.
it will be closed. Okay.
Okay.
Then here you will be able to see your output. Whatever you are doing here in the whatever query you are going to do, for that your output will be shown here. First thing, I have already opened that. So I'm going to check what are the databases already available here. So for that, what you have to do is show databases. Okay, and always end it with a semicolon. Okay.
Okay.
If you don't end it with a semicolon, when you're entering new query in the next line, it will show you error. Okay. So always end it with a semicolon, and you can select this, or you can place your cursor here to run this query. Okay. To run this query, you can click the second one, execute the statement under the keyboard cursor. Okay. Click this one. So it will show you the database records here. Okay, let me close this. So if your query is correct, it will show the green color tick, or else it will show you the red color cross. Okay, so I will just minimize it. Okay, so here you will be able to see the all the available databases. Some are inbuilt one. Some databases I have created while working on the SQL content. Okay, so the DB, employee. Okay, so these are all the databases I have created while working on the. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we are going to create a new database. So let's see. So I haven't put the semicolon here. So I'm creating a create database. These two are keywords here. Okay, create database are keywords here. Space, you have to give your name of the database. Okay, it can be anything. So here I'm giving the name school. So when you are entering the query itself, it will show you the error. Why it is showing error here is I haven't put the semicolon here. Okay. So here it is not showing error, but whenever I'm going to enter a new query, if I don't give the semicolon here, it will show error in the next line. Okay. So always end it with the semicolon. So what we'll do is, now I have shown you how to execute the line, right, by clicking it. Other than this, what you can do is you can press Control plus Enter. Your Control plus Enter will also run the query. Okay, if your query has successfully executed, it will show it like this. Okay, so
Spandana, quick question.
Yes, sir.
What is the way where you can run your Jupyter notebook? Like here you are entering, right? Control plus Enter.
Shift
What
enter.
would you do? Yeah. So these are all minor differences which happens with all the different setups.
Yeah.
Okay, so you just need to be sure that, okay, where you are running. So sometimes, like if you're like, I will tell you for git bash, right? Control C is for closing.
Yes.
So what you will do, right, when you want to paste, right, or copy or paste things, right, what you there, it's like your shift and insert works in the picture.
Yes.
Okay, so similarly there are different courses. So everything will have their, right, shortcut key setups. So you just need to, right, whichever database, wherever you are working, all you need to do is just create that shortcut key and work on it. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Continue.
yeah, okay. So in Jupyter Notebook also you can use the Control plus Enter to execute the line, but what will happen is it will not insert another new line next.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
when
ma'am.
you are pressing the shift plus enter, it will enter a new line. But as for control plus enter, it will not enter a new line there.
Yeah.
So after creating the database, the one more thing is that when you're creating the database, you cannot create the database with the same name again. You have already created the database with the name of school. Okay, so you cannot create the database again with the name of school again. Okay, so
Okay. It should be
remember
unique.
that. Yeah, new one. So in order to work with this database, I have created the database, right? So I want to work with this database. For that, you have to use the keyword use. And then you have to provide your database name. And end it with semicolon. Okay.
Okay.
You have created the database. If you want to work with the database, you can click on you can use the keyword use and the database name. Okay. So I have already created many databases like. So when I run this, it's showing all the databases. If I want to work with the database employee, I can give use employee. Okay. And when I run this code, what will happen is it will take you into the employee database. Okay. So now I'm going to use only the school database. So school. I have run this code. Now inside the database, I'm going to create a table. Okay, the table where I'm going to store some data. Okay, so for that, you have to use the keyword create next table, and then you have to give some name to your table. Here I'm going to give the name student. Okay, and then what are the attributes you needed for your table? Okay, for example, roll number. Okay, for example, roll number and the type of that attribute. Okay, there are various type of data in a database like in your Python. So what are the type of data are? So int, varchar, and char, float, boolean, okay, and then date. Okay, these are the data types available in your database MySQL. Other than this, there are many data types like blob to store your image and video files and all. Okay, you can just search for those things. Here we are going to see all this basic and these are the data types have been used in most of the databases. Okay, so we are going to see about all these things. Okay. So for roll number, it can be the integer, or if it is with some symbols, or if it is with some characters, you can use varchar. If it is a whole number, you can use the integer. It is up to you. Okay, here I'm going to use int. Okay, I'm not going to provide any size for this. So you'll be able to see what is the size here. So here you can see if the size of this thing, size of the attribute increases, you can increase the int1, int 2, int 4, int 8. It will be used to store your mobile phone number. That is 10 digits, right? So you can use the int 8 there. Okay. So my roll number, I want it for the integer type. So I'm providing it as int. Okay. Next, I want a name. The name can be full of characters, or it can have some symbols like so in here we'll be writing our name with the initial .s .m likewise. So we'll be provide name with varchar, and we can provide the size there. So you can see here there are many data types here available. Okay, so I'm not going to show everything here. So you can see timestamp is here, year is here, and blob. The blob will be used to store the image file. If you want to store, you can store there. Okay, and date is here to store the date data type. Okay, you can just check on all those things. Okay, so name varchar, I'm going to give the maximum size here. It can be maximum of 20 characters. Okay, it will not allow more than 20 characters. Okay, then afterwards age. Okay, age can be int, right? Then other than this, what I can have is I can have mark 1 int, mark 2 int, mark 3 int. So these are the data types I'm going to have in my table. Okay, so now let's see the constraint. Afterwards we'll be able to work on this table. Okay, so let me show you the constraint there. Okay, for creating the table, if you want to set some condition to your table, condition to some of its if you want to set some condition to roll number, if you want to set some condition to age, if you want to set some condition to gender, okay, you can use this constraints. The constraints are all not null, primary key, foreign key, unique, check, default, create index. Create index will be seeing in the next classes. Okay, but these 6 things we will be discussing in today's classes. So how to create a constraint? What your null will, not null, what it will do is it will make sure that your field doesn't contain any null values. It will not allow any null values inside your field. Okay, so for that we'll be using the not null. And primary key. What your primary key will do is it will be helpful to, for example, if you're having some ID identification like roll number, you don't want it to be repeated and you don't want it to be the null one. Okay, at the time you can use the primary key. I don't want my records null. I don't want my records to be the duplicated one. Like I'm already having 101. I don't want the another 101 inside my field. So at the time we can use the primary key. Mainly it will be useful for some identification thing. Okay, and then foreign key. Where your foreign key will be used is when you are going to refer your table, your current table with another table, there you will be using the foreign key. So I will discuss it while doing the query there. And then unique. So what your unique will do, it will be helpful to avoid duplication, but your unique key will allow the null values. Okay, your unique will allow null value, but it will not allow the duplication. Okay, every values will be unique there. Next, your check. What your check will do is it will check some condition. Like in my school, the student's age should be greater than 6. Likewise, it will check some condition. And the default one. The default keyword is used to set some values default for all the records. Okay. For example, here, let me show you. So my roll number, I wanted it to be the primary key. I can add primary key here. Or else what I can do is I can simply give comma and primary key. Inside the bracket, I can give roll number. So you can either do it in this way or else you can do it in this way. Okay, both are same. Both work the same. Okay, this is one thing. Okay, so my roll number will be the primary key. And I want my age. Age should be greater than 12. Okay, so here it will check whether the age is greater than 12. If it is lesser than 12, it will show you error. Okay, and my name, I want my name should be the not null values. Okay, so I can add not null. Okay, and then I can have a class int, and then I can give the default value for the class. Default in the quotation, or else simply you can give 7. Okay, which means you don't, when you're inserting the values, you don't need to provide the value for class. Okay, you can simply, it will automatically insert the value 7 for your class. Are you able to understand this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, then for foreign key?
Foreign key, we have to create a new table and then we can use the foreign key. So for example, let me create a table address. Create table address and then address ID. I wanted it to be in the varchar. So I'm going to mix some letters and numbers there. So I'm declaring the type as varchar. So just give it a size 10. Okay. And then city. And then country. I'm going to declare country as default India. Okay. Now semicolon. So, okay. So here I have inserted some extra comma without giving the data type there. So city varchar 20. Okay. And country varchar 20. Okay. So now I have created the address one. So here I'm going to insert the address, a new field called address, and giving the address ID and varchar 10. What should happen is the address ID in the address table. Okay, if I'm having the address ID A001, now in my student table, if I'm going to add some address ID, it should be present in my address table. If it is not present in the address table, it will not accept the address ID in my student table. Okay, for that, foreign key, and then you have to use the keyword called the references. Sorry. References. So it should be okay, the singular. So from where we are going to take the reference? Okay, so here we are going to take the reference from address table. Okay, so references address. Okay, and then which column we are going to take it as a reference? Add ID. Okay, so you have to provide it in the bracket there. Okay, add underscore ID. Okay, so it's showing some error here. Foreign is not valid at this position, expecting comma. Okay, so let's add a comma and then foreign key of address ID, references address ID. Okay, so are you able to understand this? Any doubts?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so now I'm going to end it with a semicolon. So since we already have default value here, let me remove this. Okay, so now I'm going to run this one first. Control enter. So it has successfully executed, and then for this one, so it shows some error. Failed to add the foreign key constraint. Missing index for constraint student 1. Okay, so first let me add some values. Okay, what kind of error have I need here. Address, ID, references, address of add ID. So everything is correct. So let me check after inserting the values into the address table. Okay. So as for inserting the values into the table, okay, you have to use the keyword insert into, and you have to provide the table name, and you have to provide all the columns name, and you have to use the keyword values, and then you have to give the values. Okay, so first let me add the records for the table address. Okay. Okay. Insert into address. Okay. Then where we are going to add. So add underscore ID, comma, city, comma, country. Okay. Then we are going to provide the values. So use the keyword values, and then add for first address ID. So if you have provided the data type as varchar, okay, you have to give the values in the quotation. I'm going to use the single quotes K1001, single quotes, comma, city, Chennai, that should be in the single quotes. Okay, and then country. Okay, so let me don't give the value for country. Let me remove this here. Then close it. Now I'm going to run this code here. So it says that insert into address. So it has inserted the values. So to view the values inside the table, you have to use select star from address. So your select query is the data query language. I have already mentioned the data query language, right? It will be useful to fetch and retrieve the data. So your data query language is select one. Okay, so these create table, create database are data definition language, and your insert one is the data manipulation language. Okay, so now I'm ending it with semicolon and executing this code. So you can see that I haven't provided the country here. Okay, but it has already included the country. This is what your default query will do. Okay, so then another way to insert is insert into address ADDRESS. Okay, address. Then you can directly give the values there. You don't need to give the column names here. So you can directly go to the values. Then you can give the values there inside the quotation A1002 ID, and then city Bangalore. Okay, in the quotation. Now if you run this, okay, column count doesn't match value count at row 1. Okay, so here we have provided country, right? So here it doesn't take the value, just because when you're giving the values here, what will happen is if you're having 10 columns, it should be 10 values here. When you're using this kind of query. Okay, if you're going to add only for add ID and city, what will happen is you can use the query like this. You have to provide the columns on which you're going to enter the values. So you have to provide the column names there, and then you can enter the values there. So if you're not going to miss any column values, for example, if I am going to add country, like let me add Japan here. Let's see what will happen. Okay, so let me add Japan here. So now I am going to enter this. So I have already entered this. Now let me run this code here. So it is showing Japan. Okay, so what is happening here is okay, what is happening here is if you don't provide the value, it will take the default value India. If you provide the value, it will take Japan. Okay, so I'm having three fields. So I'm entering the three values here. So if I only want to add for add ID and city, I can use this kind of query. If I'm going to add values for all the columns, I can use this kind of query. Okay, now let me use this Control C. I'm going to paste here, Control V. So I'm going to add the values for add ID and city. So if you want to add multiple values, okay, if you want to add multiple values, what you can do is you can simply add comma here, comma, and then bracket, and then A1004, okay, and then city, Mumbai. Okay, so if you want to insert multiple columns, I mean multiple rows, you can add comma and then you can open the bracket and add it here. Okay, now run this code. Okay, and then again I'm going to fetch the values, selecting. So it has added the values here. Are you able to understand this? Do you have any doubts here? Any doubts?
See the difference between those two, like insert into address and address values.
Okay, which one? Which line? 8th one and 10th one?
10th.
Okay. So the thing is that we are having address ID, city, country. We are having three fields when you are creating the table here. Okay. So if I'm going to add to a specific column, like if I'm going to only add to the add address, okay. So I can specify the column in the bracket and then I can insert the value. So it will not show you any error. Okay. So if you're going to add the values to some certain specific columns only, I'm going to only add the values for city, which means I can remove the address ID and I can use only the city here and I can add the values for the city. Okay, it will add the values. Okay, so let me show it to you. So insert into address. I'm going to add the values for city. Okay, I'm going to use city and I'm going to provide the value. Okay, Hyderabad. Okay. Now I'm running this code. Again, I'm going to select query, use select query. So what is happening here is it takes Hyderabad and as per address ID, it puts null value here. Okay. So your this query will help you to add the values in a certain column. Okay. So if I'm having three columns there, I want to add the values to all the three columns. I can use the query in the 10th one. There I don't need to provide the add city or add ID or city. Okay, just because I'm going to add the values to all the three columns.
Okay.
Okay. So
Got it.
We don't need to use the column names here. You are able to understand this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So in a select query, what are the things we can do is if it is represented by star, which means it will fetch all the field. Okay. If you only want the country, you can do it like select country from Okay, select country from address. Okay, now enter this. It will only fetch the country value. Like you have done in pandas. Okay, what did you do in your pandas? If you want to select only the single column, do you remember? Do you remember?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so in pandas, what we have done? We have used the data frame name and we have specified the column using the dot operator or the square operator, square bracket operator,
Yeah.
and we have fetched the column. Okay, so like that, if you want to fetch some column only here, select some column only here, you can provide the column name here. And from where you are fetching, there you have defined the data frame name, right? Here you will be defining your table name. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, good.